We've explored riding the waves of emotion. This session, we're going to talk about riding the waves of pain and how handling our emotions are more difficult with pain, and why yoga can help. Yoga, as we know, is about yoking, union with our deep down goodness, our inner steadiness. Mindfulness is our ability to monitor our thoughts, to observe the coming and the going of our busy fluctuations of the mind. Research supports that movement, exercise, is very beneficial to our well-being, and breath work is a particularly exceptional feature in yoga, that learning how to breathe optimally without effort, the in and out, the ebbing and the flowing, that three-dimensional breathing, and the new practice we've learned of the extended exhalation breath, which is particularly effective at triggering, fostering the parasympathetic nervous system. And yet, sometimes waves of emotion are very strong and it makes little difference what we do. So learning to experience and ride the waves of emotion, particularly when we're in pain, requires skillfully using our breath to help calm our nervous system and temper our reactivity. Foundational principles we've discussed are acceptance, that ability to be where we are without fighting or resisting, not giving up, but simply finding that equanimity, that ability to ride the waves skillfully. And along with acceptance is love, that important aspect of being gentle with ourselves, charity beginning at home. Now, when it comes to the interpretive energy of pain, how we respond has a lot to do with how we experience pain. And short term, bed rest may be exactly what we need. And yet, too much bed rest can lead to disuse and fatigue and perhaps more pain long term. So we need other strategies. And let's talk about pain and what influences pain. Expectation. Pain specialist Judith Sheeman talks about expectations that light up the brain and jazz up the nervous system. So if we are expecting pain, we can often experience pain if that is the expectation. Also, anticipation, how we anticipate pain. And when you anticipate pain, it can happen or you can experience it, whether it's actually happened or not. You can feel it. And a scientific study in which subject participants in an MRI machine were told that when a red light comes on, you will experience pain. When they see a red light, they'll experience a little shock. What they found is that subjects were saying they were experiencing pain before the red light came on. So they anticipated and said they felt the pain before it actually happened. Context. Now, a football player on the playing field is not surprised by being knocked down. It is an expectation, and pain, the experience of it, is really minimized at that moment. However, if a football player was tackled in a grocery store or in a dangerous setting, the impact of that would be experienced very differently. And that, of course, makes sense. So let's talk a bit about the history of pain. Back to the 17th century, Descartes had a model for pain, which in effect said that the place you experience the pain, in this drawing, the toes getting too close to the fire, that is where pain is felt. So it's a sensory experience. If you stub your toe, the pain happens in the toe. Well, as time went on, scientists over the years, and this other perspective continues to be held to be true by many. However, with time, the Vietnam War, for example, in the 60s, scientists began to see there was something going on that was very separate from that model that Descartes came up with. They observed that soldiers in the heat of battle, experiencing significant injuries, battle wounds, reported that they felt little to no pain in the heat of the battle. And then equally perplexing was those who had to have, for example, a leg amputated and as a result of a battle injury, and reported that they continued to feel their phantom limb. They continued to feel it. So how to explain that? The model that science came up with was the gate control model, and it has been expanded and altered a bit to what is now today called the neuromatrix model. And that is that pain begins in the brain. And in this model, it identifies where the thoughts center part of the brain is, the emotions and sensation. It is in the brain itself that pain is experienced, the interpretation of the sensation, the reactivity or not of the thoughts associated with the injury, the feelings that come along. So this model, the gate control model, the idea is that there is a gate that opens or closes as the information about the injury goes up from the source to the brain, and the brain interprets, feels, receives sensation, and depending upon whether the experience is felt more acutely in terms of catastrophizing, the gate either closes or opens. And when the gate is fully open, then the full experience of pain happens. And when through our thoughts and feelings, we're able to reduce our reactivity, our overreaction perhaps, then less pain is felt. Now, what are some other indicators? There's this natural painkiller, endorphins. And the endorphins are morphine-like painkillers, natural, in the body. And so the release of endorphins is beneficial. Then how physically relaxed we are versus physical tension affects our pain level. And then there are special nerve pathways leading from the thought centers in our brain down to the gate. Essentially, the story our mind tells us influences this gate model and our experience. So, have you noticed pain? That pain is less when you're happy, more aggravated when you're feeling negative, sad, angry. And does your label of the pain change your experience? Labeling it sensation versus pain. Is pain in your head? Essentially, yes. But that doesn't mean that pain is imaginary or made up. Only the brain feels the pain. For example, when we stub our toe, it is not the injured toe that feels our pain. So how we interpret how uncomfortable or unpleasant our pain is impacts our experience of it. So in conclusion, how does yoga play a role? Deep relaxation can release endorphins, our body's natural painkillers. And yoga asks us to look within, inside ourselves, for that deep grounding steadiness, developing our physical and mental resilience to build our capacity to move in and out of comfort. Pain is when we perceive to be under threat, and sometimes it is completely appropriate and needs to be heeded and responded to. But other times we drop into reactivity. And if we can change the language from threat-based words to loving kindness and hope, it can impact our experience of pain, influence our experience of pain. Our bodies have an amazing capacity for healing. And remember, healing defined as becoming of sound mind and body. And our bodies have this extraordinary way of seeking to protect us and support us and our well-being. So yoga reminds us that our bodies are strong and precious, and to care for them with love and the balance we're all seeking in our lives, that acceptance of what is, that kindness turned to ourselves, and that love that shores us up in the waves of life. Thank you.